Warning: the following review will contain spoilers for The Lightning Thief. The quest ended, but darkness is still afoot. The Sea of Monsters, the second book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, starts us off with Percy in a much better position than he was in at the beginning of last summer. He has a mostly stable life with his mom, but there is still the possibility of something going wrong. This feeling is only validated when Percy has a dream about Grover, who is somehow in danger, and a wedding dress. Despite this, Percy, with some encouragement from his mom, is just trying to enjoy one final day of the first year of school that he has ever had that does not involve him getting expelled. And as you may expect, it doesn't really go that way. Percy ends up in a dodgeball game with a team of Lastrygonian giants that throw fireballs. Just can't catch a break, can ya? Thankfully, Percy is given some help from his school friend and fellow victim of bullying, Tyson, who is somehow able to deflect fireballs without too much trouble. Annabeth pops up, stabbing the last one in the back, and then she grabs Percy and Tyson, telling them that there is trouble at camp. Once the group arrives at camp after a crazy car ride, and fights off a couple monsters with some help from Clarice, oddly enough, Percy finally sees what the problem is. Talia's tree has been poisoned, meaning the anti-monster barrier around camp is slowly weakening, leaving the camp vulnerable. But, to make matters worse, Chiron is the prime suspect, and as a result, he has been exiled from camp. But wait! There's more! He's been replaced by Tantalus, a man who was previously being punished in the worst part of the underworld for eating his own children, and he has a bit of a hatred of kids as a result. Indeed, one of the first acts he puts into practice as activities director is reinstating the chariot races that were discontinued due to being too dangerous. Couldn't you pick someone who, doesn't hate kids to help run a summer camp full of them? No? Ugh, whatever. And the cherry on top? Percy now has a major source of embarrassment to deal with. It turns out Tyson is a Cyclops, hence why he's so strong and isn't bothered by fire. And since most Cyclops are children of Poseidon, Percy has a new cabin mate, a socially inept big guy with one eye, and it's getting him weird looks from the other campers. But there isn't too much time to think about it, because they need to come up with a way to save the camp and to get past Tantalus, who won't let anyone leave on a quest. Thankfully, Annabeth and Percy are able to work through their disagreements and come up with a way to do just that. The Golden Fleece, a magical artifact in the Sea of Monsters, or the Bermuda Triangle in modern times. Unfortunately, even though they managed to pressure Tantalus into approving the quest by announcing their whole plan in front of the camp, he gives the quest to Clarice because she performed well at the chariot race. This doesn't stop Percy from wanting to try though, and with some divine intervention from Hermes and Poseidon, Percy, accompanied by Annabeth and Tyson, is able to set out, and thus the quest to save the camp begins. Alright, there is no avoiding it. This book was something of a dip in quality for the series, especially compared to the first book. I didn't find myself as invested in the main plot or the characters this time around, but there were several character moments that stood out for me in the book, and weirdly enough, none of them involved guinea pigs. Let's start with Luke. This book gives us a clear look at Luke's plan and his base of operations, the Princess Andromeda, a massive cruise ship mostly full of monsters who serve the Titans, but some of its inhabitants are other demigods, who, like Luke, are fed up with the status quo and don't like being ignored by their godly parents, left as unclaimed, societal outcasts, or eaten by monsters. And every crewmate Luke gains gives more strength to his master, Kronos. Luke wants revenge against the gods, and he's willing to go to almost any lengths to get it. And he does have a point. Being a half-blood really sucks. That's why the first lines in the entire series are Percy warning the reader that being a half-blood is dangerous. Despite everything he's gone through, Percy is lucky compared to a lot of demigods. And while I do like Luke as an antagonist and a foil here, I don't think he or the theming associated with him is at its best here. It does serve the plot and the themes of the series, but not so much the plot and themes of this individual book. By contrast, I felt Annabeth was just as interesting in this book as she was in the first book. Part of that is the fact that we get to see new sides of her. In the first book, her arc was about recovering from her loss and growing stronger, and maybe giving the people in her life a chance, including Percy, who she gets rather close with once she starts seeing him as his own hero and not just an extension of his father's feud with her mother. In this book, she has to deal with the fact that someone she has known for much of her life betrayed her, and out of pure selfish desire for revenge, is trying to destroy all of Western civilization. She's torn between knowing he has to be stopped and desperately wanting there to be a way to save him before he either destroys the Western world or has to be put down. But she's still able to act as a stabilizer for the team, especially Percy, acting as a confidant and able to keep him focused on the goal of saving the camp and hopefully Grover in the process. One of my favorite moments in the book, keeping this spoiler light, is when Percy gets to see a vision of Annabeth's greatest desire, her getting to rebuild the world with Luke by her side. And they're both happy. She wishes that she could make everything work out, and she arrogantly believes that she could do it given the chance, thus revealing her fatal flaw: hubris. Surprisingly though, the greatest standout for me this time, outside of Percy and Annabeth, was Clarice. During this reread, I didn't expect Clarice to have this much of a character arc, but what can I say? She does. Despite still being a bully to Percy, she gets a ship and crew from her dad, but only because Ares is very clearly using her. There's a scene where Percy sees her talking to her dad, and he's very condescending. He sees her quest as a potential redemption for what he did in the last book, and he tells her that she absolutely cannot afford to fail, or else he'll be very disappointed in her. As a result of this, she makes a very risky move to try and get ahead in the quest, and she pushes on even when it's clearly not working, and it costs her. She may be the camp bully, but a bully was probably bullied themselves. Knowing this causes Percy to make a selfless decision toward the end of the book, letting her complete the quest, despite all the times she sabotaged the quest and all the times that she bullied Percy. At the end of the book, he has the humility to let go of his pride despite everything that Clarice has done to him. And last but not least, Tyson. Tyson is clearly intended to be coded as having some sort of mental disability, and as such, he's rather socially inept. Percy's school initially took him in as a pet project, and thanks to his social awkwardness, he was bullied a lot, and Percy became his friend to try and lend him a hand. He suffered so much as a societal misfit, much like the other campers, so once he learns the truth about himself, he fits right in at camp. He also learns to develop his own strengths, like being a great smithy who built a chariot, and a shield for Percy detailing their adventures together. This, combined with his monster strength, make him a valuable member of the team, a great friend, and a great brother to Percy. From this point onward, Percy doesn't care what judgments he gets from those around him for having Tyson in his life. Tyson is wonderful and capable in his own way, and anyone who doesn't see that is missing out on having him as a friend and all that entails. This is a trait that sticks with Percy throughout the rest of his life, and helps define him as a hero. He does not care about judgment from others, and he will not let anyone else get left out, no matter how much of a misfit they are. Final thoughts. This book is the lowest point in the series for me, and one of the lowest points in the Riordanverse for me, but it isn't a bad book. I'd rather read the worst of Rick Riordan than the best of most other authors, even some of my favorites. There are a lot of moments in this book I do really like and would rank as some of my favorite moments in the Riordanverse, but due to my emotional investment in this book being a bit lower, I have to rank it at C tier. Not bad, but not that remarkable either. So, if you've read the book, what did you think? Did you agree or disagree with any of my points? Whatever your thoughts, comment below, and until next time, the Mythos archives are always open.